Freya and the Unicorn by J.T. Wilson. On a farm near a small town, not that far from a bigger town, near a city that was a long way away from anywhere, lived a little girl called Freya. Freya just lived with her dad, and of course with all the farm animals. They had 91 cows, 22 sheep, 3 dogs, and more chickens than Freya could count. Freya loved her dad and the farm and all the animals very much, and she tried to help out as much as she could because her dad had to work a lot on the farm, and she knew that things were not always easy for her dad. One day her dad asked her a special question. "Freya," he said, "next week is going to be your birthday. Is there something I could get you for your birthday that you would like?" Freya thought very hard about this. "Yes, Dad. Sometimes when you are working so hard, I get a little lonely, and I know I have the dogs for company, but sometimes I think I would like a bigger friend. Sometimes I think I would be very happy if I had a donkey." "A donkey? Yes, Daddy. They are my favourites." "Okay, Freya, we'll leave it with me and I'll see what I can do." The next week, on the 8th of June, Freya woke up early. It was her birthday. Today she was 5 years old. She went straight into her dad's room. He was just waking up. He had been working hard the day before. "Hello, Freya," he said. "Happy birthday. How does it feel to be 5 years old?" "Well," said Freya, "it does not feel that different to being 4 years old. Only now I will never be 4 years old again, will I, Dad?" "No, my lovely daughter, you will not be 4 years old again." Freya felt a little sad and lay down and cuddled her dad. After a while her dad sat up and said, "Shall we have breakfast?" "Can we have pancakes for breakfast?" "It's your birthday, Freya, so yes, of course we can. Why don't you go and get dressed and I will meet you in the kitchen." Freya got up and went back to her room, and while she was getting dressed, she thought she heard a funny sound from her dad's room. She wondered if he might be sad. Sometimes he got a bit sad, but he did not want her to see, so she didn't go back in. In the kitchen, both of them were very happy as they laughed and made and ate a big bowl of pancakes. When they finished breakfast, her dad asked her, "Are you ready for your birthday present?" "Yes, please." Freya followed her dad outside, and there on the other side of the barn was a beautiful little brown donkey. "Freya, my daughter, this is Nigel the donkey." "Hello, Nigel." "Dad, he is lovely." Freya cuddled Nigel and he went out and he let out a slight ee-aw. "Thank you, Dad, he is perfect." The next week Freya spent cuddling and playing with Nigel and talking to him and feeding him carrots and showing him around the farm, and they had a great time. With Nigel around she never felt lonely. When her dad was busy working, they had a lot of fun, and she told Nigel lots of special things like, "I love you and you are my best friend." One night after dinner her dad sat her on the couch. "Freya," he said, "you are 5 years old now. Do you know what that means?" "Does it mean I'm a big girl, Dad?" "Yes, it does mean that you are growing, but it also means that it's time for school." "School?" "Yes, there is a school just a few miles away in the town. All the farmers' children go there, and many kids that live in the town too." Freya thought about this for a while. Should she be worried? "Dad, will I like school?" Her dad thought about this for a moment. "Actually, Freya, I think you will. You might find it hard at first. Most things are hard at first. But there are lots of other kids, boys and girls, and I think you'll be very happy to have so many to get to know and play with." Freya told Nigel all about it the next day. He seemed a little sad. "Will you miss me when I'm at school?" she asked him. The donkey seemed to nod his head. He did that sometimes, and Freya was sure that he could understand her. "Don't worry, Nigel. I will come home every day and give you carrots after school, and you might like to have a rest and sleep in the shade while I'm away." A few days later, Freya's dad drove her to school. She held her dad's hand as they walked through the playground. There was a lot of children there. Some she thought she had seen before, and so she waved, and a couple of them waved back. Her dad introduced her to her teacher. Her name was Mrs. Bridge. She had dark brown hair, and Freya thought she was very friendly and nice. Her dad stayed a while, then waved as he left. The first day of school seemed very long. She talked to some of the other kids a little. They asked her where she lived and why she only lived with her dad. Some of the other kids seemed to know her house. I know that funny little house. It's so small and old, one boy said. Its dad called it the funny farm. Freya had never thought of their house as being little or old or funny. When her dad picked her up from school, she asked him. Oh, he said, a little surprised. I never really think about it. A lot of the houses around here used to be like ours, but this area has grown a lot, and I guess compared to a lot of the new ones, it is a little small and old and funny. But hey, we love it. Some people live in big houses, some people live in small houses. But I reckon as long as you're happy, then that's what matters. Are we happy, Daddy? Her dad pulled the car over and turned to her. My love, with a daughter like you, how could a man be anything but happy? Freya, you make me feel like the luckiest man in the world. He smiled and turned around and carried on driving. Freya watched out the window. Some of the new houses out the window were very big now that she thought about it too. At school, as the days went past, she started to make some new friends. Some of the other kids were very nice to talk to, and they all loved to play. Freya loved to play. One day, one of the other girls had a special book. Everyone wanted to look in the book, so the girl made everyone line up and take turns. The book was about unicorns. When Freya's turn to come look at the book, she could see that unicorns were bright white, had a horn on their foreheads, wings, and a big fluffy tail. Just like all the other kids, Freya thought that unicorns were the most special creatures in the world. At school, after that, all the other kids started talking about how their parents were going to buy them a unicorn. After a while, Freya started to feel a little left out, so she decided to say that her kids might buy her a unicorn too. For some reason, the other kids laughed when she said this, and Freya felt very sad. She went off by herself and sat under a tree until the lunch bell went off and it was time to go back to class. On the way home in the car, her dad could see she was upset, and so he asked her why. All the other children are getting unicorns, and I really want one too. Her dad did not answer, and so she cried and cried all the way home. After dinner, her dad put her to bed early, and she fell asleep quickly. Going to school and being upset was very tiring. The next day she felt the same and was not sure what to do. She could not ask her dad for a unicorn. They must be very expensive. When he picked her up, she felt a little strange. Her dad stopped on the way home and they sat by a pond in the gardens where all the ducks were. They liked watching the ducks. Freya, he asked, do you really want a unicorn? Freya looked at her dad. But we can't afford a unicorn. No, her dad said, we cannot. Actually, there are very few people who can. But there are other ways to get things in this world if you're clever. Freya looked at her dad. He seemed to have a very cheeky smile. A few days later, her dad was a little late picking Freya up. He had a nice lady with him called Angela, who seemed very pleased to meet Freya. They drove home like normal, and Freya put her bag in her room and her lunchbox in the kitchen. Her dad was standing by the back door. He looked at her with a big smile. I have a surprise for you, he said. Follow me. Freya followed her dad outside and out round the barn, and there it was, standing beside Angela, and exactly where her donkey Nigel had been before was a lovely shining unicorn. It had a horn on its forehead and a big bushy tail, and it was as white as snow. It did not have wings, but Freya was too excited to worry about it. Daddy, it's perfect. Thank you. Angela helped too. Angela, thank you. She gave her dad a big hug, and then the unicorn. What is his name? Well, that's up to you, said her dad. Okay, then I will call him Sparkles. Freya spent the rest of the day sitting beside Sparkles and running her hand through his big bushy tail. She could hardly believe her luck. She had a unicorn. Imagine what the other kids at school were going to say. Would they even believe her? The next day she told them all about Sparkles. They did not say much. She did not really understand why. She asked them if they got their own unicorns, and not one of them said they had, which she could not really understand. But at least they stopped teasing her. Some of the other kids said they would like to come and meet Sparkles, but she wondered if it was because they just wanted to see if she was real. She asked her dad on the way home anyway. Perhaps on the weekend, he replied, but the weekend came and he did not say yes. Perhaps next week, he said after she had asked him again. Freya was a little bit more confused. Why didn't her dad want her friends to come over and meet Sparkles? Some of them were starting to say mean things again. One even said she was a liar. You don't have a unicorn. When her dad picked her up, she was sad in the car again the way home. What's wrong, Freya? I'm sad because no one believes me about Sparkles. Her dad just nodded his head. Nigel would believe me. Freya thought about this a moment. Dad, where is Nigel? I haven't seen him in a while. Oh, I don't know. Have you looked for him? Freya thought about it a moment. No, she had not looked for Nigel since Sparkles arrived. She had not really thought about him at all. Why not? He was his very special friend. She had been so distracted by Sparkles. When she got home, she took Sparkles around the farm to look for Nigel. She looked down by the dam, behind the barn, near the tractor, but he was nowhere to be found. He was my special friend, she told her dad. I can't believe I forgot him. But what about Sparkles, her dad asked. Freya thought about it. Sparkles is pretty and has a big bushy tail. But I always wanted a donkey before, and I miss Nigel. I see, said her dad. He seemed very quiet about it all, thought Freya. The next day, Freya told everyone at school about Nigel, and how she had always loved donkeys, and how lucky she had been to get one, and how she missed him, and how she had spent the whole night before looking for him around the farm. The other kids seemed interested. Some of them even offered to come over and help look for him. Freya's dad took her home again that day after school, and after she put her bag in her room and lunchbox in the kitchen, he asked her if they could talk. Freya, would you like to see Nigel again? Freya nodded. Freya, Daddy was worried about how sad that you were not being able to get a unicorn, and so I got a bit creative. Well, Angela and I did. Her dad paused. Freya was confused. Freya, he finally said, I would like to ask you a question. If you could trade Sparkles for Nigel, would you? Freya thought about this. Sparkles was so pretty, and that big bushy tail, and none of the other kids had a unicorn, but that had not made her feel good. Nigel was her friend, and she missed him. She had never felt bad or strange about having Nigel before. Also, her friends at school had wanted to help her find Nigel again. They had only wanted to come to the farm to see if Sparkles was actually real. Daddy, yes. If I had Nigel back, could some of my friends from school come and meet him? Yes, of course. Daddy, yes, I would trade Sparkles for Nigel. Of course I would. And you wouldn't be sad anymore? No, I wouldn't be. I would be happy to have my friend back. And I'm happy to be here, Daddy, with you on the farm. It does not matter to me if the other kids have bigger houses or more cows. We have each other and I have Nigel. But Dad, how am I going to get him back anyway? She looked at her dad. He was looking outside and smiling. She looked outside. It had started to rain. It had not rained in weeks and weeks, and it was very heavy rain. Dad, did you know it was going to rain? I had hoped. Come with me, Freya. He opened the door to the outside, and she followed him out, holding his hand. Dad, why are you smiling so much? They stopped beside the barn. Look at Sparkles. Freya looked at Sparkles. He was standing in the rain getting very wet. There was a big white puddle gathering under him. Freya did not understand. Daddy, what is happening to Sparkles? Keep watching, said her dad. The rain got heavier again. All the white colour of Sparkles was washing away, and the bushy tail was flattening down, and the horn was sliding off. Within a few minutes it was all gone, and there in front of her very eyes was her old friend Nigel. Sparkles had been Nigel's all along. Freya could hardly believe it. She did not care about getting wet. She ran over and gave her friend a big cuddle. Nigel nodded his head and said, Eeyore, it's good to have you back, Nigel. I won't lose you again, I promise. She looked over to the barn where her dad was standing. He was standing in the rain and smiling too.